It is a pleasure to welcome you to the Boston Architectural College, where we provide excellence in design education, emerging from practice and accessible to diverse communities. I'm Diana Ramirez-Jasso, Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs here, and this evening it is my honor to introduce our 2018 Cascieri speaker, Rahel Shawl. Before I introduce our 26th speaker, I would like to acknowledge the invaluable framework that makes this important lecture possible. The Archangelos Cascieri Lectureship in the Humanities was established in 1992 by the BAC Alumni Association to honor Dean Cascieri's legendary spirit of volunteerism, demonstrated through, among other things, more than 50 years of dedicated service to the BAC. The Cascieri sponsorship enables the BAC to invite a distinguished speaker every year to present a public lecture on the ways in which spatial design intersects with broader human concerns and aspirations. The conversations we're able to have with these speakers bring together students, faculty, administrators, alumni, and friends to gather around our shared values, reinvigorating our commitment to imagining and creating better futures. It is thanks then to the BAC community that continues to embrace Dean Cascieri's example of shared purpose and altruism, as well as to the donors and sponsors who contribute so generously to this lectureship fund, that this series of conversations is possible, including this special moment tonight with Rahel Shawl. To all of you who have been part of this project, please know that we are very grateful for your support. I am delighted, therefore, to welcome Rahel Shawl to the BAC tonight to continue this very special tradition with her talk, Architecture and Engagement. Rahel Shawl experienced her earliest conscious engagement with the built environment in the 1970s as a child growing up in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, during a time of political turmoil and unprecedented urban growth. This bustling multicultural environment inspired her to appreciate and to interrogate the city and its neighborhoods, and to develop a keen understanding of the architectural dialogue between local traditions and foreign influences, whether Greek, Armenian, or Italian. In 1991, Rahel graduated from Addis Ababa University with a degree in architecture and urban planning, and by the time she was 26, she had begun to work independently and had co-founded her first firm, ABBA Architects. In 2004, she launched a new office, RAS Architects, which is today one of the leading architecture practices in Ethiopia, with an expansive body of work that includes interior design, residential buildings, schools, health centers, hotels, and embassies. If there is a common thread that runs through both Rahel Shawl's work and through her biographical story, it is her fierce sense of responsibility and commitment. First, to Ethiopia, but also to cosmopolitanism, to education, and to inclusion. As you will see tonight, her work is often the materialization of a relentless desire to forge bridges between local and global cultures, between architecture and nature, and between human aspirations and opportunity. This latter goal, has driven her to create new forms of financial and human support for the education of disadvantaged youth in Ethiopia. Impressively, Rahel Shawl has managed to make many of these simultaneous bridges perform in exceptional ways. Her work has therefore garnered important recognitions. In 2007, she received an Aga Khan Award for her work as architect of record on the Royal Netherlands Embassy in Addis Ababa. In 2017, she received the Abyssinia Social Service Prize, as well as the Best Architecture Peace Award from the Association of Ethiopian Architects for her collaborative work on the South African Embassy in Addis Ababa. This same year, Rahel was also awarded a Loeb Fellowship at the Harvard Graduate School of Design, which indirectly also brought her to the BAC for the first time. Her work in support of women and girls led her to be included in the book Turn Salad, phenomenal Ethiopian women, and to be appointed Honorary Goodwill Ambassador for Ser Ethiopia, an NGO dedicated to promoting education for girls. She is currently one of 5 shortlisted candidates to receive the Dorfman Award, which is going to be given for the first time this summer by the Royal Academy of Arts of Great Britain. I think Dean Cascieri would want to be here with us tonight and would find Rahel's work inspiring. Please join me in offering a warm welcome to our 26th Cascieri speaker, Rahel Shawl.
Thank you, Diana, and I really want to say I'm honored to be here today and to be able to give this lecture. I'm very happy to share with you some of my experiences back home and to do it through my work that I have entitled Architecture and Engagement. So let me start by giving a sort of background, a context, because I'm coming from far away. And like Diana said, I've learned architecture in our school in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is in the east of Africa, and it's one of the most beautiful countries for me and for many people who've been there. It's a country that is about 100 million people now, and very vast, beautiful landscapes, amazing cultures, and a country that, unlike some other African countries, not been colonized. Therefore, it has an identity. We had the Italians' occupation for 5 years in 1940 up to 1945, which influenced some of the architecture. But literally, the identity, the culture, the fierce passion and commitment that the Ethiopian people have to their place is one of the most important things that I want to touch upon. But as an architect, working my last 27 years in Ethiopia, I would like to show you some of the most beautiful architectural monuments. Some of you know from the early 400 BC of the Aksum, which is the right top, to Lalibela churches, which are beautiful historic landmarks for us as Ethiopians, to the Fasilides castles and all the traditional works. We have grown knowing what our heritage is like, and we've seen architecture and its influence in many of the communities. And when we go to the city of Addis Ababa, and since I grew there, it has influenced me in most of the works as you go around the churches, the municipality of Addis Ababa, the modern buildings that are prominent and cultural spaces. You see in the top, in the bottom left, this is our city center that we celebrate all of our cultural things. And so we walked around the spaces in Addis, talking about architecture. I mean, not in a very comprehensive way, just living through them. And there's so many influences that it has given us and has influenced me. This is in the 1970s. This is one of my, the street near my neighborhood, going up to the municipality to the north, just to give you an idea that we had modern buildings that are very important places. And then you see Addis now. I just took this from my office last 2 weeks ago. Just an abundance of sparkling high buildings with mixed residential. Like I said, we don't have that planning. The planning of Addis Ababa since 1889 when it was formed is very organic. Therefore, you see this mixture of living spaces. And so it's a very dynamic and amazing city. But also it has the other face. like most cities, the ones that we have problems with housing and poverty, urban poverty. And it's all intermixed in many ways, and they're not secluded as such. They're part of each and every community. So we grow up knowing everything, like your neighbors are, some of the most influential rich people, and then right there, as you see, behind the major roads, there are these networks of very poor housing conditions. We have situations like this, infrastructure problems, we have inequalities, and we have all sorts of mixed issues that we see in our cities. This is recently, in the last 15 years, Ethiopia has been going through a very fast economic growth, and so urbanization has played a big part and role in how we work as architects. You see the combination of amazing networks that are just going around about, maybe not so much with great planning, because the development is so fast that everything is going on top of each other. And so qualities are not necessarily as they should be, because the growth rate is very, very fast. But again, this is where we live, this is our context, this is the country and the city that we dearly love. And somehow, it is also, Addis is a very important city. You've heard that I work with a lot of embassies, and that's because it is the capital of Africa and the seat of the African Union. We have so many embassies. We have the United Nations organizations, a lot of high standard buildings and needs at the same time as all the social, housing and everything that's going on. Therefore, for me, and an architect working in that context in Ethiopia, how is this that we work and engaging in the work? What do I mean by that? So for me, it's a sort of deep commitment to how we do our work. It's not something that you go on a drawing table, you have a client, he comes to you and he tells you, gives you a frame of reference and says, just build this and that's it, I have this budget. It's a deeper understanding and a deeper commitment and engagement to what you want to do personally. Therefore, I have just, could narrate it in so many ways, but I decided maybe the way that I've worked as an architect since I was very young, through 2 offices, setting up 2 offices and working daily, is I managed to do it in 2 or 3 ways, which are very important to me. That's what I want to share with you today. So, I'm sorry, what did I do? Yeah. So, one of the things that I want to talk about today is how it was very important for me and people like me in architecture to be engaged deeply in advocacy work. And when I say that, it is because of the context. Is architecture important? Is architecture even a visible tool? Do people know what architecture is about? And what is our role? How do we redefine ourselves in this society if we want to make an impact? That was the question that you have to ask yourself. And since I was starting my office in a just coming out of the communist era, and there was nothing really happening, we started with a small desk and said, okay, how do we make a difference? And the way forward was advocacy. Yes, architecture is important, because before that, if you go out to the society, you'd hear, oh, are you an engineer? Because engineers are people who build, and we don't need architects. Architects are rather artists. And they're not really, I don't need you, really, because what I need is just fast, quick construction. And so it is maybe the engineer who has more value, or the contractor who has more value. Therefore, as an architect, how do you advocate for your profession that you bring value into the whole supply chain of construction. Therefore, that's one of the things that we do. And in the context of this rapid urbanization, nobody's waiting for us to come up with ideas and engage in theories. And, you don't have that time because there's somebody else who's going to do it fast, quick, and maybe not give it much worth in the end, or maybe it does. But for me, to be an architect was to advocate and really engaged in advocating excellency. And you will say as an architect, I will give you as a client value for your money, sometimes it's not even money, it's about being engaged as part of that construction chain and making yourself valuable to that client, to that society. How do we build, not only to excellent, but to come up with ideas? We have to advocate as architects in that constant context to come up with ideas that have, you can say, values of aesthetics and values of sustainable design concepts, values around you coming up with amazing ideas from the ground up. So what I will do is just, instead of talking, I'll just continue and show you a couple of projects that I've been engaged in so that it can be clear what I'm talking about to you. So for example, this is a beautiful project. I mean, we got engaged in 2006 or 7. It was a long time ago. And the client comes, he has around 60,000 square meters in the southwest of our Ethiopia, a beautiful landscape which is in the Rift Valley. It faces a lake. And you can see so many trees. And the client wants to build hotels. And they say, we're facing the lake, have a beautiful lake. We want to build up, facing the lake, fast concrete structures. And we said, no, this is a 70 or 80-year-old property that is kind of running to the ground. But why are we taking off all these trees? We are engaged for 3 or 4 months. We said, let's study this property for you. And let's come up with, take each and every tree, because they are very traditional indigenous trees that we don't want to destroy. So unless we engage, and the client was like, why do that? Just get ahead. I want fast construction. And we said, no, let's do this for you. So we did that. You see the land, and all these green trees that you see are actually interconnected foliage. It's not like you see them. It's amazing property. And so we're like, okay, we have the wetland towards the lake. We cannot build there big structures. Can we continue to build as it was? First, if you see that, small bungalows within these properties, they have monkeys. It's an amazing wildlife resort for me. And so we're there every time. With, every opportunity with my whole office would go down there and just take. So it took 3 months, 4 months to take this data. We collected, we convinced our client, and now we're coming up with ideas. One of the circles to the far left is an old tukul, and it was supposed to be demolished. We said, no, let's not demolish it. Let's keep the concept and let's build. So we came up with this kind of scenario, which we had on the wetlands area. We had the main functions, the restaurants, the buildings, and then the bungalows. And then finally, the tall towers can be on the roadside facing the city, and they can be used like that. So this is what we came up. We kind of tore down a bit of the old structure, and we rebuilt using local materials, local building. This is a very, very local contractor did this. He didn't have no knowledge prior to that, but we worked with him, basically on each and everything. Put skylights in the tukul heads, and this is kind of the restaurant and the bungalow. And this is how the property looks now, and we're continuing now, 2006, remember, and now 2018, 12 years later. As an architect, to be involved for all these years on such a project does not have value for you financially or anything, but I find so much joy just being able to. The next, and this is some of the visuals. The next, another project that I'm involved in is Cure Hospital. For this, again, it's an orthopedic hospital, teaching hospital in Addis Ababa. And they always have a little fund to work with. So our term of reference was we want to expand our existing ward with 50 beds and have design a new rehabilitation center. Now, what we thought about, we went there, we did the expansion, which was a normal hospital for the 50 beds. We did everything we can, uplifting it. And then we said, for this one, what do you need? Just 20 beds extra, and that's it. But when we looked at the site, it is facing the most beautiful public park with amazing treescape. And we said, and also not only that, if you see the terrain, it has like a drop of about 8 meters from the top. And we're like, okay, you need only one floor. You have just enough funds for building this one floor. But we cannot retain 2 more floors down. You'll be losing money. And they're like, no. So we spent so much time discussing with the client. We said, you will see. This will need, maybe you can have on the 2nd floor a training center. Maybe on the downstairs you can have residences for your doctors or whatever. But let us spend 30% more on the structure so that you can do the 1st floor and phase it. So these are the kinds of engagements that I'm talking about. And now we did that, and we said we will face all the beds towards the beautiful public gardens. And now we have that, and you see the 3 floors. We actually even, the 2nd phase, it was completed about a year and a half, the 1st floor, and then the 2 floors were left, like, I'll show you the 3D the picture. But now they have the funds because, and we're doing the 2nd floor. We have a new gate lab, which is the 1st in Africa, and we have the residentials. So now we're going to tender for the 2nd project. So this is how it looked for the last 2 years. That you're adding value to the client by engaging in conversation and communication with them. That's what I'm trying to say as an architect. The third one of the maybe smaller project that makes impact. This is in Lalibela in the north of Ethiopia. And the clients, we want a kind of traditional building, but kind of modern, kind of Lalibela looking. And we said, okay, let's engage in the landscape. Landscape is, again, like I said, Ethiopia, most of the landscapes are hilly. We use those landscapes. We came up with a concept of traditional and very modern. I love contemporary, simple designs. I love texture, clean lines. And we came up with this idea, and we're going to build it now. It's a simple residence, but just to give you an idea of how design thinking, design processes start from actually the client engagement. And that is very, very important because in a place like where we are, it could turn out to be anything. And mostly sometimes it could turn out to be a copy of something in Dubai or China and so we're trying to say we can bring excellence through local design ideas. The second and most important part of engagement for me working was through collaboration. And engaging in collaboration is the biggest advantage if you see it as an architect. So when we have this question about, do architects only wear one hat? You know, can I be just one person doing everything? And I always say no. I can be anywhere that I can be in that supply chain. When I get a project, I can be the lead architect. I can do the first sketch. I can also be in a position of architectural coordinator. I can be the local architect. I can be the architect of record. Whatever my role is in this time, and in the context, at least where I'm working for, you have to be diverse, you have to be knowledgeable enough, and you have to engage at different levels. And you have to be smart about doing it and say, yes, I can do that too. Can you be involved this way? Yes, I can do that. And most times we don't know because our resources are very limited. If I can explain, I came here last year in Harvard and I was like, wow, the libraries and just the internet and all these things that you have at your hands, you don't have them back home. So if you're talking about details and anything, you just don't have them. You have to either try to do it from scratch or ask. So collaboration lets us actually learn on the place, on the ground. So for me, that was a very smart way of engaging. And I will again show you 3 examples of collaboration, 3 projects, very different. The first one is, most of you have seen it, the Royal Netherlands Embassy, how we engaged in that as architects of record and what happened in that process. Second one is the British Council, another collaboration with the British government and British Council. And what was that collaboration? What was the result? And the third one was a turnkey project. That is another collaboration. So let me go to the Netherlands Embassy. This is in 2009, 1999 actually. Yeah. So we started, the architects from the Netherlands, they walked into our office one day and they asked us, are you able to collaborate with us, or can you, or would you want to? And we said yes. But once they started talking, we're young, we didn't know what we're talking about. We had done local projects, we had collaborated before. But when we saw the first outline, I remember my heart was beating and I said, what am I getting myself into? Because it's something that we're not aware of, this kind of technique of casting concrete, pigmented concrete, to be the final output of a huge project. So this is the Chancery. It's, sorry, I'm using metrics, 14 meters by 140 meters. It's, I'll show you the plan. So this is, if you see the plan, it's completely conceived by the architects as from Lalibela. You know, the rock-hewn churches, they're underground, and they have the red pigmentation of concrete and the roughness of the concrete to make it kind of like Lalibela. Because again, the examples of collaboration, especially in embassies, is of 2 cultures. So the culture from the Ethiopian side is that on the design. From the Dutch side was the crust landscaping. You see that is the site, the roof plan on the first. It is landscaping that I'll show you in picture, which is filled with water. So imagine doing all this as a local architect. And our role was to understand this project, to do the coordination of all the engineering work that was happening in Ethiopia, and to do the specification, bill of quantities, tender, and construction supervision. And I was there literally, I lived on that project for 2 years, making it happen. So quickly, this is kind of the facade, a detail of the facade. Once the contractor cast, everything is there. Everything, like even the interior lights, the sockets, the fans, everything. Therefore, can you imagine, you have to be on site 24/7. To even see the concrete casting, you see, and then, it's not good, we have to redo it again. But it took 2 years. It was a fantastic project. This was our collaboration team. This was one of the architects in the middle. That was me and the contractor. This is the crust landscaping I was talking about. And this received the Aga Khan Award for Architecture in 2007. It was an amazing experience for me because I was part. And for me, it was that collaboration was a knowledge tool that I took to the next embassies, to the next design excellence works. This is the British Council a lot of collaboration with engineers, with Ethiopians, engineers with foreign British. This is the in-house British architect who did the conceptual design. And this time round, the next phase, we were given the whole documentation and design process. And that was another knowledge for me, because there's another step. This project was kind of simple, but was under the idea of sustainable design, environmentally friendly. We had all the intersections, you see, the wind catchers, the sun pipes, and all these things. Doing it internally, but making it very, very beautiful project. It was all trees on the site. We cut the trees at the beginning of the project, sawed them, and kept them for a year so that they could be used as cladding. The whole idea of embassy security, you have to be offset from the road by 30 to 50 meters and have concrete facades. That's why you see concrete all over again. But that concrete would have been ugly. The architect came up with this idea of the cladding, and we worked. Each and every cladding was thought about, sewed, and put into place like this. You see on the left is the wood from different species of Ethiopian trees, which made it absolutely amazing. And on the right side of the drawing, you see on the right side cladding, sort of the idea of the roofscape of the Addis Ababa corrugated sheet roofing. That was the idea. But just to make it happen, in a place where you as an architect have to always push for quality, for excellence, never giving up. And that is the true value of us as architects. So this British Council again. And the next project is that we recently completed is a school building, an ICS, International Community School. And this was another collaboration. A contractor came to us and said, can we tender together as a built project? And drawings were 90% DD drawings. We took them. They were developed by actually architects here in Boston. And we took over. And the idea here is not as easy as it looks, because you're working under a contractor that literally can influence you because of cost and everything. But the value of collaborative approach is, if you have that sense of collaboration for value, then people are easily following you. So we had a great team again. We used details for bringing lights into the spaces below. We had a green wall, things that are always new to Addis, to Ethiopia, to our construction ways. And we're always fascinated and always looking forward for these new ideas that through collaboration you can get. And the value in the end is quality. And they know that working at least with my team, they will not get away with anything less. So we're always pushing boundaries to make great projects, whatever they are. This is the south elevation with all my beautiful, so I use stonework, because Ethiopia has amazing craftsmanship in stonework through the centuries. So we use all kinds of stonework, claddings, and these are natural stone. And they come out beautifully, I think. So these are some of the interior spaces. Now the next part where I believe in engaging yourself is just empowering people. We have in Ethiopia now, I said 100 million people. We have 30% of the youth from the age of 15 to 30. That means we have so much unemployment, underemployment. We have a lot of issues around that. So you cannot just, at least I cannot just work, as an architect and forget to empower and value people beside me. Therefore, I am very much engaged in this in my office, through my office, and as a professional as well. And the first thing that you need to do when I say empowerment is engaging in building relationships. You have to be reachable to this youth. I mean, this is the whole context, is that they will come to you in the office at any time. They want to just spend time with you and engage with you. You have to be out there, and you just have to be reachable and build trust. to build these relationships. Then it is empowering through different means. You are already part of that society. People know you. And if you're lucky, people know you for some of the good works you do. Therefore, it's very easy to find yourself being a role model and a change agent. And once you're at that point, you cannot just shut your doors and live by yourself or work by yourself. You're completely engaging with the youth. And so this, for example, is my daughter's school. She's right in the middle. And they call you for, can you come and talk to us about architecture? Even high school students. So I go there. I'm always available for these meetings because I know you're impacting them from this time on. And what I was talking about, building trust and building relationships, and is traveling together. This is my South African architect in the middle. We did the South Africa Embassy together. And we take opportunities to travel with my office because I value it. If I can travel maybe, but others can't. Therefore, through this relationship, when people come to engage in our office is when we can open up others to these foreign and collaborative works. This was my son when that was a long time ago. You see him now, he's all grown up. And this is through internships. So our universities, which are architecture universities, like I said, when I graduated it was just one, 27 years ago. Now it's 22. And so many kids graduating, and we don't know what to do with them. I mean, our offices, which maybe are, 180 or 200 offices, cannot take on all these interns, but we do that because the government, we're forced by the university, by the government to take on interns, which I love. And so we do a lot of work with these interns that are officially in our office, but what do we do with the others that we cannot take? I love to work on sites, and that's the only way that you can bring excellence in these situations, because maybe in other situations, contractors take on that liability of excellence. Here, in our context, no, you have to be there on site all the time. And fortunately, I love doing that, and it gives me such pleasure to work across the industry, influencing engineers and on-site people, and even masons, and I really love working with them. So that's how you do that, and other times it is through lectures in universities. I go, obviously, whenever they call me to juries, but also open-ended lectures to all the universities whenever I can, and in our associations. But the most important thing for me is, though it's the youth, is the women in architecture, and I'm quite an advocate in engaging in that for an equitable share of the resources in the construction industry. There is a lot of buildings yet to be built in Ethiopia and in Africa. Therefore, why not our women? And there is such a scarcity of women in the profession. Though now, nowadays in the universities, there is equal 50-50 kind of classes. But then once they come out from the universities, they're not there anymore practicing, because it is such a patriarchal society where it's not known. So this picture for me is very, very interesting, because when we go out to the sites, all the people around the men are like, why? So it's very interesting to explain and to find yourself be in the forefront of that and say, yeah, I'm the boss of all these men. And I like saying that all the time. But by saying that, it is to give confidence to yourself first thing, that you can do it. And unless I'm very confident that I can manage to design and to bring solutions as anybody else, then how can I let others know? So if you're positive about this thing, it's through your work. I believe it's not only by talking about, women and this and that. It's by also showing through your work. And even if that we're not there always talking about women and all these things, you can show just simply through your work. and your confidence and your knowledge that you're able. And so these are my teammates. We always travel, we always go together. That's an architect, this is an engineer. She's taking the lead in my office. They're fantastic, and they've been with us for so many years, and I hope through, just by being together, they learn a lot. We learn a lot from each other. Oh, this is a repeat, sorry. And this is young architects again, one-to-one, just because I couldn't find the space, which I want to talk to them one-on-one. Nowadays, what I'm doing is setting up a kind of a meeting time where they would come and ask their questions, and we share their worries, and I encourage them, and I tell them, come up with ideas, because maybe there's not work or projects for all of us, but we can come up with ideas, and maybe we can work together. And through also arranging, these are professional women, architects, and discussions, lectures, workshops, whatever you call it. This is our office in Ethiopia. And we have these coffee sessions, and we talk about the challenges and the opportunities that we have. And I believe that it's more opportunities if we're positive towards it. This is my story and my work in very short and very brief. And I believe that engaging in many ways through our love and deep commitment to our societies, we can be fruitful in the end. And I thank you very much for having me.
I would like to take questions from the audience.
So just wondering what sustainable approaches you're taking in your projects currently, and what the kind of the whole country's attitude is on sustainability and renewable energy and things like that, and how that ties into your work. And you can take about a half an hour for that.
Sustainable energies and projects are very expensive. I mean, all the time we come up with these ideas of using sustainable energies, working with this. Always it is at the forefront of all our projects. Unfortunately, when it comes to costing them, and they kind of get shelved, because they're still one of the most expensive things to do, like solar energy or coming up with any kind of this sustainable practices. But now the government is giving incentives to have, for example, solar-powered panels, duty-free, and all these things. So it's coming that societies and the government's awareness of this is very essential to bring them into our sustainable, designing them into projects that will be sustainable.
So, you mentioned there's not enough work for all of the architects coming out of school. Is there the opportunity for the architects to become the owners or become the developers so that they can create their own work?
Yes, actually, yes and no. So I think there are many initiatives from the government side now to have young people collaborate in groups to come up with what they want to do. Especially in construction, that is the case. Usually in construction, they can come up with that kind of solution. In design, it's less so, because these young people, they come out, and of course, they're graduate architects. They're not licensed yet to take big projects, but what they do is, nowadays, they come together and they work on smaller projects, interior designs, this kind of projects that don't need too much of this. Finance is the biggest problem, even for us. But I think nowadays the young people, the emerging architects, are very creative, and I like that. because they are engaging in, okay, there's no work and for us, so what should we do? And they're going into, some of the women that I know, they're going into fashion design, they're going into jewelry design, they're in all sorts of engagements rather than sitting. And some of them come up with public design projects and going to, so it's very nice to see that somehow some of them are enabled to do that and creative in that. So yes.
I just want to ask you about a different kind of sustainability, and that's the sustainability of culture. I know that Ethiopia has a very proud culture and a very unique culture that is facing challenges through rapid urbanization and global cosmopolitanism. And I was wondering if you could talk about any situations where you as an architect have spoken with local craftsmen and made that a value add for foreign architects in your context.
Yeah, we've done one project specifically that has used local building materials. We've used mud and bamboo and and all these technologies. But to your question, it is not, especially if you're working it in an urban context with, for value of, if it's a hospital, for example, or it becomes very expensive actually, and it becomes time-taking, and maintaining it will be a problem. So this is my personal take on using this very, very localized materials in the urban spaces. But what we can do is find ways that are innovative, that we use materials that can be used in the urban context, but use it in a way that is not wasteful, that is very considered and thoughtful. Not use all this glass, I don't have anything about this glass skyscrapers. If they're used within the context, if they're designed well, and they have used them well, but mostly they're not, unfortunately. They're very cheap materials brought in very fast, and that is the problem with our urban solutions in architecture. So if they're done with the context of shading in a simple way that we've done for so many years, using natural north-south shading devices, verandas, I don't know. There's many ways that an architect can solve urban problems. But yeah, the thing is, again, the awareness, the challenge to yourself of what it means, and not following the norm and be part of the norm. So I think it's possible, yes.
Hi, Rahel. I'm curious to learn a little bit more about how you got started. We have a huge international community here at the BAC, many of which have interest in returning to their home countries and starting their own practice. And so if you could give us some advice on how to get that going, what would it be?
That would be just go back. I'm serious, and so many people have asked me this question. Thank you for asking that. And the more we procrastinate, and the more we think about the impossibilities, the less we'll go back. I mean, the playing field is better out there. Like I said, I was breezing through this thing, but it has been very hard. It has not been easy. I will not be coating it with these things, but at least you can create your own way, yourself, in a way. You find yourself in a very distinct way on how you engage back in your country, in your places. So it's not easy. The roads are not paved, the hospitals are not built enough, and there's not enough school. It's because this is what I talk with my family, but you are the young generation who can make that change, and you just have to do it. Just have to find an architect, not all of the professions, but architecture. It took us 20-something years to be where we are. It cannot happen in 1 year, in 6 months. You have to persevere. It's a knowledge process that is always changing. So there's not one solution. I just say, come, and find yourself, and you are in your own space, in your own country. So I think it should be great.
Hello. Hi, my name is Nusha. I'm an alumni of the BAC, and I wanted to thank you for this lecture because it was very nice that you shared your story of success with us, but at the same time you shared the story of your fears and the moments of challenge with us, which I think that's the truth of our path, but usually we don't get to see that other side. And it was very inspirational for me to see that you as a woman started in this major 7 years ago. And I was wondering what was your inspiration to keep going in this path, and if you had any mentors, because it seems like mentorship is a big part of your career right now. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I interned, maybe I passed that so many stories, but I worked on an internship just as I graduated from school for 2 years on a church and theology college project in Addis. My mentor was that person who was the designer. He was also my teacher in the university, amazing friend and mentor. And the thing was, we were allowed to design, detail, work there. It was a project on the project office, so we worked there. We trained the young people. We saw them as they were building the bricks from our designs. We went there. You know, those 2 years were, for me, the formative years. And what happened was, as we were working there, people would come and say, "Why are you all this young?" There are young architects. It was 3 of us under our mentor, Malcolm. And so we just started accepting a service quarter, a little extension, a chimney in somebody's residence renovation. And like I said, it just didn't start with, let's have a big office or anything. It just started slowly, and we worked very hard at perfecting that process. And there was no hurry. I mean, we were young, we were excited. We didn't have money. I was designing jewelry. I love to design jewelry and selling it. So it's, like I said, maneuvering those spaces if your intention is passionate about architecture. And I believe unless we're very passionate about architecture, then it's such a hard profession. It's not doable, maybe.
I had a question. There have been some comments about culture and job opportunities in general. It seems like architecture is an emerging field in Ethiopia, especially for women. Is there any interest in cultural heritage conservation? As you know, Ethiopia is also a country with a rich past, and is there any interest in that as well? I was wondering if you could speak to that.
There's a lot of interest. Actually, one of my favorite instructors from school, he is largely working on heritage preservation and protection. There's, in our school at EIABC in Addis, there is, I think, under him, you can find how he's amazing at his work. And there are many now working in all this conservation of our heritages. And recently, so many international competitions are coming out for these heritage projects, and many collaborations are happening to really, especially the churches, the Lalibela churches. They are in the news recently also, how to keep them. And there's a lot of interest towards that.
Rahel, we have come to the end of time. Our students need to head to their next classes.
Okay.
So thank you so much for this amazing
Thank
story.
you so much.
Practice.